Paul opened his eyes to a soft glow above him. The light was not like the sun, not warm and golden, but silver and cool. It spilled across a ceiling that looked alive, as if veins of crystal pulsed faintly with their own rhythm. He blinked, sat up slowly, and realized he was lying on a smooth platform that was neither bed nor floor. It shifted under him, as if the ship itself was breathing. The silence pressed against him. No voices, no machines, only the quiet hum of the place itself. He rubbed his head, trying to recall the last thing he remembered. There had been Earth, the sky above his small town, and then nothing. His memories ended like a book with torn pages. Paul swung his legs off the platform and stood. The air was fresh but heavy, carrying a faint sweetness like flowers he could not name. He reached out and touched the wall beside him. It was not metal, it was not stone. It felt like polished glass that was alive, warm to the touch, and it pulsed in response to his fingers, sending ripples of light across its surface. He whispered to himself, "Where am I?" A path opened before him. The wall folded like liquid, reshaping into a corridor filled with soft blue glow. He hesitated, then stepped forward. Each step echoed in the strange hall. The ground beneath him was smooth, without seams or marks, as though carved from a single piece. The corridor stretched ahead, and at its end he saw what looked like tall windows. He moved closer and froze when he reached them. Beyond the glass was not land, not sky, but space itself. Stars burned bright against the endless black. A nearby planet glowed with swirling storms, its surface wrapped in silver clouds. He felt a shiver of awe. He was far from Earth, far from anything he knew. Paul pressed his hand against the window. His reflection stared back, pale and small against the vastness beyond. He was human, fragile, yet standing in a place clearly built by something far greater. He turned as a sound broke the silence. A soft chime, like the striking of crystal. The corridor behind him shifted again, reshaping. A new passage opened, wider and brighter, lined with glowing vines that grew from the walls and ceiling. They moved faintly, as if they were aware of him. Paul's heart raced. He did not know if this place meant safety or danger, but the path had opened for him. It felt like an invitation. He stepped into the new corridor. The vines pulsed as he walked. Some leaned toward him, others curled back. He almost thought he could hear a faint whisper in the air, like voices too quiet to understand. It was as if the ship itself was alive and watching. At the end of the passage stood a door. Unlike the shifting walls, this one was solid, marked, with shapes that glowed softly in patterns he could not read. He placed his hand against it. The symbols flared with light, and the door slid open without a sound. Inside was a chamber unlike the rest. The ceiling rose high above him, filled with strands of light that hung down like stars frozen in a web. The floor was a mirror, reflecting both himself and the lights above, giving the sense that he stood in a space without end. In the center of the chamber was a throne, grown not from wood or stone, but from the same living crystal that formed the ship. It pulsed with a rhythm, slow and steady like the beating of a heart. Paul froze as the air shifted. Something was there. From the shadows around the throne, a figure stepped forward. She was tall, taller than any human, her form graceful yet powerful. Her skin carried a faint silver glow, as though she was shaped from starlight itself. Her eyes were radiant, deep and endless, and a crown of living crystals rose from her head, moving gently as if alive. Paul's breath caught. This was no ordinary alien. This was someone who belonged to this place, someone who ruled it. The figure did not speak at first. She walked forward slowly, her steps echoing across the chamber. Paul wanted to step back, but his feet felt locked in place. Then she stopped before him. To his shock, she reached out and wrapped her arms around him. Her touch was warm, gentle, not threatening. Paul stood frozen in disbelief. She leaned close, and in a voice that carried both strength and softness, she whispered, "I have finally found you, human." Paul's heart pounded in his chest. Questions stormed through his mind, but none reached his lips. He had been taken across the stars, brought before a being of power, and instead of anger or cruelty, she had embraced him. The silence of the chamber returned, heavy and deep. But in that silence, Paul understood one thing. His life had changed forever. Paul stood frozen in the embrace of the tall being. The alien queen held him as though she had waited centuries for this single moment. Her arms were strong but not harsh, her glow warm against his skin. When she whispered, "I have finally found you, human," the words struck deeper than sound. They carried weight, as if her voice touched his mind as well as his ears. Slowly, she released him. Paul stumbled back a step, staring up at her. His thoughts rushed, colliding into each other. How did she know him? Why had she spoken as if she had been searching for him? He finally found his voice, though it trembled. "Who are you? What is this place?" The queen's silver eyes softened. She did not answer at once. Instead, she gestured with her hand, and the chamber around them responded. Strands of light shifted above, moving like a living sky. The mirrored floor rippled until an image appeared upon it. Paul gasped. It was Earth, his home, seen from above. The blue oceans, the green land, the white clouds. It looked so close, so alive. His heart ached at the sight. The queen spoke, her words steady and clear. "Your world is not forgotten. It is the place where the bond began. Long ago, when my people stood at the edge of ruin, a human saved us. From that day, a promise was made. We would seek your kind again when the stars turned dark once more." Paul's breath caught. "A human? Saved you?" She nodded. "Yes, a man of your world gave us hope when we had none. He stood when others fled. He fought when all seemed lost. His courage lit a path through the shadows of war. Without him, my people would not exist. His bloodline, his spirit, carries forward. I have searched across time and space to find it again." Paul's mind spun. It sounded impossible. Humanity was still young in space. No one he knew had gone far enough to meet beings like her. Yet the way she spoke, calm and certain, made it feel real. He looked at her, trying to steady his voice. "Why me? I'm nobody special. Just Paul. I don't know how I even got here." The queen stepped closer. Her presence filled the chamber like a tide. She reached out, placing a hand lightly against his chest, just above his heart. "You are more than you believe. I see it within you. The same spark, the same strength. It is why the ship brought you here. It is why I knew, the moment I looked upon you, that the promise lives." Her words unsettled him. He wanted to deny them, to say she was mistaken, but deep inside he felt something stir, a strange pull, as if her voice touched a hidden part of him he had never known. Paul stepped back, shaking his head. "I don't understand. Why would I matter to you? I'm just one person. I don't even know where I am." The queen's gaze did not waver. She moved with slow grace back to her throne. When she sat, the living crystal reshaped itself around her, flowing like water to fit her form. She raised her hand again, and the chamber changed. Images formed in the light above. Strange ships, dark and sharp like blades, filled the sky. Fire rained upon worlds he did not know. Beings of shadow moved across battlefields, bringing silence to everything they touched. The images made Paul's skin crawl. "These are the shades," the queen said. "They rise once more. Long ago they sought to erase all life that did not bow to them. We survived only because of the bond with your kind. But the shades have grown strong again. They seek to strike at my throne and erase every trace of humanity's place in our history." Paul stared at the visions, the creatures, the destruction, the endless dark. They felt wrong, as if the very idea of them pressed against his mind. He looked back at the queen. "And you think I can stop them?" The queen's eyes shone brighter. "Not alone, but you are the key. My people need a symbol to remember the promise. The shades must see that humans endure, that we do not walk the stars without you. You will remind us of what we once were and what we can be again." Paul felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. He wanted to say no. He wanted to shout that she was wrong, that he was just a man from a small town who had never left Earth. Yet as he looked at the queen, he felt something else, an odd certainty. Somehow, he was meant to be here. The queen stood once more, descending from her throne. She moved with elegance, but her steps carried strength, like a warrior as well as a ruler. She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You fear this burden. That is natural. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to act despite it. That is what made your kind strong. That is why I searched for you." Paul's chest tightened. Her words struck something deep inside him. He thought of Earth, of his family and friends who had no idea where he was. He thought of the image of Earth glowing in the chamber, fragile yet beautiful. If these shades truly threatened worlds, then his world might one day be among them. "I don't know if I can do what you want," Paul said quietly. The queen tilted her head. "You do not need to know. You only need to take the first step. The rest will follow." The chamber fell silent again. Paul looked at the stars above, the mirrored lights, and then back at the queen. She was alien, powerful, and mysterious. Yet there was something almost human in the way she spoke to him, as if she truly believed in him. At last, Paul nodded slowly. "Then tell me what I have to do." For the first time, the queen's lips curved into a faint smile. Her crown of crystals glowed brighter, filling the chamber with silver light. "Then the bond begins anew." Paul followed the queen through the endless halls of the living ship. Each corridor shifted and reshaped as they moved, as if the ship knew where she wanted to go and opened the path before her. The glowing vines swayed gently overhead, giving off faint pulses of light, like stars beating in rhythm with her steps. Paul stayed close, still overwhelmed by everything he had seen and heard. The queen's presence was powerful, yet he noticed she moved with calm grace, never rushing, never faltering. She seemed completely certain of her place here, while Paul felt like a child stumbling in a dream he could not wake from. At last, they reached a great chamber. The walls rose high, curving like the inside of a vast dome. In the center floated a sphere of light, suspended above a circular platform. The surface of the sphere shimmered, images shifting across it like water reflecting memories. "This is the Hall of Echoes," the queen said. Her voice carried through the chamber, steady and clear. "Here lies the record of all that was, of bonds made and promises sworn. It is time you saw the truth with your own eyes." Paul stepped toward the glowing sphere. His reflection wavered across its surface, then dissolved as the light inside stirred. Images bloomed within. He saw beings like the queen, but younger, their crowns of crystal smaller, their glow dimmer. They were surrounded by shadow, their cities burning under skies of smoke. Then another figure appeared among them. Paul's breath caught. It was a man, a human. His features were different, his clothes strange, but he was human without doubt. He stood tall among the alien people, holding a staff that blazed with fire. His eyes were filled with determination, his face marked with the strain of battle. "Who is he?" Paul whispered. The queen stepped beside him. He was the one who answered when all others turned away. When the shades rose in darkness, no world dared face them. All feared their endless hunger, yet one human came alone. He fought beside us when none would. He gave his life so that we could endure. The image shifted again. Paul watched as the man stood on a battlefield of stone and flame, leading a charge of the queen's people against towering creatures of shadow. His voice carried across the scene, rallying those who had lost hope. Together they drove the shades back, though the man fell in the final hour. Paul felt a shiver crawl up his spine. To see a human standing at the center of such a story, shaping the fate of an entire race, it seemed impossible. Yet the images were too vivid to dismiss. The queen's eyes were fixed on the sphere. He was not chosen by bloodline or birth. He was chosen by will. He chose to fight when no one else dared. That choice became our salvation. We swore never to forget his courage. We swore that when the stars grew dark again, we would seek your kind, for we knew another would rise. Paul tore his gaze from the sphere and looked at her. "And you think that's me?" Her silver eyes turned to him, calm but certain. "Yes. The same fire burns within you. You may not see it, but I do." Paul shook his head slowly. "But I'm nothing like him. I've never fought battles. I've never led anyone. I'm not a hero." The queen tilted her head slightly, her crown of crystals catching the light. Neither was he before the darkness came. He was simply human. Yet in the moment of choice, he found strength. That is what your kind carries within. The strength to rise when all else falls. That is why the shades fear you. Paul stared at the shifting images again. The man's eyes burned with courage, his stance unyielding even in the face of overwhelming odds. Paul felt a strange connection, as though the images were not just history, but a mirror showing him what could be. He swallowed hard. If he gave his life, then what hope do I have? If someone that strong fell, how can I succeed where he failed? The queen placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. Her touch was steady, her voice calm. Hope is not born from certainty. It is born from the choice to act, even when the outcome is unknown. He gave his life, but in doing so, he planted a seed. That seed is you. Paul's chest tightened. The words carried weight beyond their sound. He wanted to deny them, to step away, but he could not. Something in him stirred, like an ember touched by wind. The sphere of light shifted once more. Now Paul saw images of Earth itself, long ago. The skies filled with stars, the oceans vast and untamed. Then he saw the man again, standing among people who looked up at him with trust, just as the aliens had. The bond was not only with the Queen's kind, it was also with humanity itself. The Queen's voice softened. The bond was not broken, only forgotten. It lives in you. It waits to be remembered. That is why I searched for you. That is why you are here. Paul stepped back, his mind racing. He had woken on this ship without memory, without choice. Now he was being told he was part of a promise made long before he was born. It was too much, yet he could not turn away. He looked up at the Queen. "What do you want me to do?" She studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "I want you to remember not only the past, but what it means to be human. My people need that memory. The galaxy needs it. The shades fear it. You must carry it forward." Paul drew in a slow breath. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady when he answered. Then, show me how. The queen's eyes glowed brighter, and the chamber responded. The sphere of light pulsed, sending ripples of energy across the mirrored floor. The vines along the walls swayed, releasing a low hum that filled the air like a song. The queen raised her hand, and the images of the past faded into light. Then the bond shall awaken once more. Together, we will remind the stars of what humanity is. Paul stood in silence, the weight of her words heavy upon him. The forgotten bond was no longer a story. It was his path. And whether he was ready or not, the future of two peoples now rested upon his choice. The chamber of echoes grew silent as the last images of the forgotten bond faded into light. Paul stood quietly, his thoughts heavy with everything he had seen. The queen's calm presence steadied him, but deep inside, he still felt uncertain. Could he truly carry the weight of such a promise? Before he could speak again, the air shifted. A deep vibration ran through the floor. The living walls pulsed darker, their glow dimming as if shadows crept across them. The queen's eyes narrowed. "They come," she said softly. Paul turned, confused. "Who?" The chamber doors opened without warning. A group of tall figures stepped inside. They were of the queen's kind, but their glow was colder, dimmer, and their crowns of crystal were sharp and jagged. Their eyes were like burning coals, and their movements carried a tense energy, like blades ready to strike. Tay. Their center walked a figure taller than the rest, his crystal crown rising high in jagged spikes. His voice was deep and edged with disdain. "So it is true. You brought a human onto the throne ship." Paul instinctively stepped back, but the queen raised her hand, keeping him behind her. Her gaze was steady, though her voice carried authority. "Raul, you were not called here. Speak your purpose." Raul's eyes flickered toward Paul, then back to the queen. "My purpose is clear. I come to question your judgment. The promise of the past is nothing but a tale. To bring a human here, to treat him as if he is our savior, is folly. Have you grown so weak that you cling to myths?" The other figures behind him murmured in agreement. Their presence filled the chamber with tension, like storm clouds pressing down. Paul clenched his fists, anger rising, though fear twisted inside him. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but the queen stepped forward first. Her voice cut through the air. "The promise is not a myth. I have seen it. I have felt it. This human carries the spark." "You would deny what even the ship itself has accepted?" Raul sneered. "The ship responds to your will, nothing more. You shape its paths, and it obeys. Do not pretend it chose him." He gestured sharply at Paul. "Look at him. Fragile, weak. How could such a creature lead us against the shades? He is no warrior. He is no king. He is nothing." The words struck Paul like a blow. He wanted to shout, to tell Raul he was wrong, but doubt gnawed at him. What if the alien was right? What if he was nothing compared to what the queen believed? The queen did not falter. She stepped closer to Raul, her silver eyes blazing. "You see weakness. I see strength hidden within. You speak of warriors and kings, but you forget what saved us before. It was not a weapon. It was not a throne. It was courage. Courage that no shade could destroy." Raul's crown glowed sharper, anger flashing in his voice. "Your words are dangerous. You risk all of us by placing faith in an outsider. If you continue on this path, you will lead our people into ruin. Perhaps the throne should pass to one who sees more clearly." The chamber grew colder at his words. The figures behind him shifted, their loyalty clear. Paul realized with a jolt, this was not just a disagreement. This was the edge of rebellion. The queen's voice lowered, heavy with warning. "You speak of treason." "I speak of survival," Raul countered. "The shades rise again and you waste time with an old tale. We need strength, not stories. Step aside, or you will lose more than your throne." Silence pressed down on the chamber. Paul's pulse pounded in his ears. He had never been in the center of such tension. Never felt the weight of power balanced on the edge of words. At last, the queen turned slightly to Paul. Her eyes softened for just a moment, enough to give him a choice. She could silence Rawl with her power, but instead she let the silence linger, as if waiting for Paul to speak. Paul's throat tightened. He did not know what to say, but as he looked at Rawl, at the cold eyes that saw him as nothing, something inside him pushed forward. His voice trembled at first, but he forced it steady. "You're wrong," he said. The chamber stilled. All eyes turned to him. Paul took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. "I may not look strong to you, I may not have a crown or glow with power, but I am human, and when we are told we are weak, that is when we rise. You think I am nothing, but that is what gives me strength. I have nothing to lose, nothing to prove, except that I will not run when darkness comes." His words hung in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rawl laughed, sharp and bitter. "Empty words, fire without flame. When the shades come, your courage will crumble." But Paul did not step back. His voice grew firmer. "If that happens, then I'll fall fighting. And that is something you will never take from me." The queen's eyes gleamed with pride. She stepped beside him, her presence strong. "You hear him, Rawl. Even without power, his spirit burns. That is why the shades fear humanity. That is why the bond endures." Rawl's expression darkened. His jagged crown pulsed with light. For a moment, Paul thought he would strike, but instead Rawl turned sharply, his cloak of light snapping behind him. "You cling to a dream, Queen. When the shadows rise, you will regret this faith." With that, he and his followers left the chamber. The walls brightened again, the heavy tension lifting. Paul let out a long breath he had not realized he was holding. His legs felt weak, but he stood tall, unwilling to let his fear show. The queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "You spoke with truth. That is what matters." Paul looked up at her, still uncertain. "But what if he's right? What if I fail?" Her silver eyes softened. "Then you will fail with courage, and that will be enough to light the way." Paul nodded slowly, her words sinking deep. He was still afraid, but beneath that fear, a spark glowed, a spark that Rawl could not take away. For the first time, Paul began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he truly had a place here. The days that followed Rawl's challenge were heavy with silence. The Queen's ship moved through the stars, but its halls carried a tension that Paul could feel with every step. The Queen's loyal followers bowed to her will, yet whispers spread in the corridors. Some believed her, some doubted, and others waited for her to fall. Paul felt the weight of those whispers. Every time he passed an alien figure, their glowing eyes followed him. Some looked curious, some cold, but few looked friendly. He knew they saw him as a stranger, an outsider the Queen had placed her faith in. Rawl had made sure of that. One evening, as the ship drifted past a field of bright stars, the Queen called him to the throne chamber. The mirrored floor reflected her glowing figure, and the vines overhead hummed like a low song. "Paul," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "It is time," he frowned. "Time for what?" "The test of worth," she answered. "My people must see you stand. They must see with their own eyes the spark that I know is in you. Only then will their hearts be silenced. Only then will the bond be remembered." Paul's stomach tightened. "What kind of test?" The Queen stepped down from her throne. "The living core, a chamber where thought and spirit shape reality. It does not judge by strength of arm, but by strength of will. There you will face yourself, your fears, and the truths you cannot escape. If you fall, no sword or shield will save you, but if you rise, my people will know the promise lives." Paul's mouth felt dry. "And if I fail?" The queen's silver eyes softened. "Then you will still have shown courage for stepping inside. That alone will not be forgotten." Despite her calm words, Paul knew failure meant more than shame. If he fell, Rahl and his followers would use it as proof that the queen's faith was misguided. The bond would remain broken, and the shades would rise unchallenged. Paul clenched his fists. Fear pressed against him, but he nodded. "Then I'll do it." The queen placed a hand over his chest, above his heart. "Remember this. The core does not lie. It shows what is already within. Trust yourself." The chamber of the living core was unlike anything Paul had seen. It stood deep within the heart of the ship, hidden behind doors of silver light. When they opened, he stepped into a vast sphere of emptiness. The walls were endless, glowing faintly with shifting patterns, like starlight trapped in glass. The air was still, yet heavy, as though it carried weight unseen. The queen remained outside. Her voice echoed softly within. "You must walk alone. No one can enter with you." Paul took a slow breath and stepped forward. The door closed behind him, sealing him in silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the floor beneath him rippled, and light rose around him. The empty chamber dissolved into an image so real it stole his breath. He was standing on earth. The field stretched wide, green and golden under a clear sky. He saw his small hometown in the distance, the rooftops, the church tower, the roads. He had walked as a child. For a moment his chest ached with longing. He almost believed he was truly home. Then the sky darkened. Shadows spilled across the horizon. The town twisted, its buildings falling to ruin. Fire spread, smoke rising into the black sky. From the flames stepped towering creatures of darkness, their bodies made of shifting smoke and sharp edges. Their eyes burned red as they moved toward him. Paul froze. He wanted to run, but his legs felt heavy. The creatures surrounded the ruins, their whispers filling the air. He heard his name carried on their voices, mocking him. "You are nothing. Paul, you cannot save them. You cannot save yourself." He fell to his knees, covering his ears, but the whispers pushed into his mind. Images flashed. His family calling for help, his friends reaching out, earth crumbling under the shades, claws. The weight of failure crushed him, but then, through the noise, he remembered the queen's words. The core does not lie. It shows what is already within. Trust yourself. Paul's breath shook. He forced himself to his feet, even as the creatures closed in. "I may be afraid," he said, his voice trembling, "but fear doesn't mean I give up. If you want me, you'll have to take me while I fight." The shadows roared, surging forward. Paul had no weapon, no shield, nothing but his will. He clenched his fists, and to his shock, light flared around them. A staff of glowing fire appeared in his hands, just like the one he had seen in the vision of the ancient human. He gripped it tight, lifting it high. The creatures hissed, recoiling from its light. Paul swung it through the air, and the fire blazed brighter, cutting through the darkness. The whispers turned into screams as the shades crumbled to ash. The ruined town began to glow, the sky clearing, the fields returning to green. Paul's chest heaved, but he stood tall, the staff still burning in his grip. Then the scene shifted again. Now he stood alone in a void of mirrors. Each mirror showed a different Paul, one frightened, one angry, one hopeless, one cold. They spoke to him in unison. "You are weak. You are lost. You will fail." Paul's chest tightened. He looked into their eyes and saw every doubt he had ever carried. But he forced himself to speak. "Maybe I am weak. Maybe I will fail. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I try. What matters is that I don't stop." That is what it means to be human. The mirrors cracked. One by one, they shattered, their fragments dissolving into light. At last, the void faded. Paul found himself standing once more in the sphere of the living core, the fire staff still glowing in his hands. His reflection stared back from the mirrored floor, but it no longer looked small and uncertain. It looked steady, stronger than before. The staff dissolved into light, sinking into his chest, leaving only a warm glow in his heart. The door of the chamber opened. The queen stood waiting. Her silver eyes studied him, and for the first time, Paul saw something rare in her gaze: pride. "You have faced yourself," she said softly, "and you did not fall. The bond is alive within you." Paul stepped out, his legs trembling but his spirit firm. He was still afraid, but now he carried something deeper than fear. He carried proof. The queen placed her hand on his shoulder, her voice carrying through the ship. "Let all who doubt see. The human has stood in the core. He has faced the trial, and he has risen. The promise endures." The vines along the walls glowed brighter, humming with life. Paul felt the ship itself respond as if even it recognized what he had done. The calm that followed Paul's trial did not last long. Even as he walked the glowing halls of the ship, whispers of unrest lingered. Rawl's faction had not forgotten the challenge, nor had they given up their hope to undermine the queen. The air itself seemed heavier, as if warning of storms to come. Then the alarm rang. It was not a loud or harsh sound, but a vibration through the floor and walls, pulsing like a heartbeat of warning. The queen's eyes narrowed as she stepped to the center of the chamber, her hands glowing with silver light. "They are here," she said. Her voice carried authority that silenced all doubt. "The shades have found us." Paul felt his stomach tighten. He had seen visions of the shades in the core, towering creatures of shadow, relentless and cruel, that could consume worlds with ease. To face them in reality was a terror unlike anything he had imagined. The queen turned to him. "You have faced the core, Paul. Now you will face what lies beyond it. You will stand with us, not as a guest, but as a guide. My people need the spark you carry." Paul swallowed hard. He had no idea how he could help, yet the warmth of her words gave him a steadying courage. He nodded. "I'll do it." The crew of the ship moved quickly. Panels of light opened across the walls and corridors shifted to form weapons platforms. Aliens, both small and tall, moved with precision, preparing for battle. Some carried glowing blades, others launched beams of energy into the sky. Paul watched, trying to understand their weapons, their tactics, their unity. "Follow me," the queen said. She led him to a high platform overlooking the central deck. Below, the air shimmered as the ship emerged from faster-than-light travel into open space. The stars stretched endlessly, but against them moved shadows that made his heart thud. The shades had come, hundreds of massive forms moving like living smoke. Their edges were sharp, their movements silent yet terrifying. "They are stronger than before," one of the queen's aides said, her voice tight with concern. "They will not hesitate to destroy us." Paul's gaze swept across the ranks of the queen's people. He saw fear, yes, but he also saw determination. Unlike him, they had fought countless battles, yet they trusted him to lead somehow. He drew in a breath, feeling the fire from the core pulse within him, and realized he could not step back. "Listen to me," he called to the nearest aliens. "We face the shades, not because we want to, but because we must. Fear will not save us. Only courage and unity will. Stand with me and we will show them the power of our bond." His words echoed across the deck. He saw heads turn toward him, eyes glowing with surprise. Even the queen's followers, who had doubted, paused to listen. Then the first of the shades struck. They moved like darkness flowing into light, their long arms reaching for the ship. Energy beams clashed with shadows, and the ship shook under the assault. Paul felt the tremor in his chest and gripped the rail of the platform. The Queen's hand glowed as she projected shields across the hull. Paul watched, memorizing the shapes and pulses. Then he realized something. He could do more than stand. He raised his hands, focusing on the fire within him, and to his amazement, small arcs of energy leapt from his fingertips. The creatures recoiled. A cheer rose from the Queen's crew. Paul felt a surge of confidence. He stepped forward, guiding the energy as he had seen in the visions. Light shot across the deck, slicing through the shadows, scattering them like mist in sunlight. Rawl's voice rang across the ship. "This is folly! You cannot hold them!" Paul did not answer. He only pressed forward, directing the light, rallying the aliens around him. Slowly, steadily, their formation held. They pushed the shades back, though not without cost. Cracks appeared in the deck, and some ships nearby were shredded by the advancing darkness. The Queen moved to stand beside him. "Your spark guides them," she said, her voice calm amid chaos. "Do not stop now." Paul's heart pounded, yet he felt a strange calm. The Corps had prepared him for this. He had faced fear, faced doubt, and had stood. Now he could see the effect of his will. The alien forces were rallying, inspired by him as much as by the Queen. A massive shade reached the ship's center, its body stretching across the deck. The Queen raised her arms, projecting a shield, but it was not enough. Paul focused his energy, calling the light from his core into a single beam. It shot straight at the creature, striking its form. The shadow shrieked and recoiled, breaking, apart into smaller fragments. Others followed, but Paul did not falter. Each time a creature advanced, he called his will, guiding the aliens, giving them courage, showing them that the bond between humans and the Queen's people could not be. Broken Rawl, watching from the distance, scowled. Even he could not deny the effect Paul had. The alien soldiers moved with confidence, their strikes more precise, their energy brighter. Paul's presence became the spark that tied their strength together. The battle raged for hours. The ship shook, and light clashed with shadow across the void of space. Yet slowly, the shades weakened. Their ranks thinned, and the Queen's forces pressed forward with a power born not from weapons alone, but from unity and courage. At last, the largest shade, a massive creature twice the size of the ship, began to falter. Paul focused everything. He had every spark of the core within him and directed a concentrated beam of light. It struck the creature, breaking it apart in a shower of sparks and shadow. The remaining shades retreated into the void, leaving the stars around them silent and still. Paul's chest heaved, sweat running down his face. But he did not fall. Around him, the Queen's people cheered. Their glow shone brighter than ever before. The Queen placed her hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than survive," she said softly. "You have reminded my people of the promise. You have shown them the bond is real." Paul looked out across the deck. The cost had been great, but the spark he carried, the courage of a human standing against impossible odds, had made the difference. He realized something then. It was not power alone that mattered. It was hope, unity, and the choice to act, despite fear. He turned to the Queen. "The bond, it is alive." Her eyes glowed with pride. "Yes, and it will not fade. The shadows will rise again, but we now stand ready, because of you." Paul's hands fell to his sides, the glow from the core dimming, leaving only warmth in his chest. The war had ended, for now, but he understood that this was only the beginning. The bond he carried was stronger than any weapon, stronger than fear, and it would guide them through whatever darkness lay ahead. The battle had ended. But the ship felt different now. Where once tension and whispers filled the halls, a quiet calm spread through the crew. Paul walked among the Queen's people, noticing the way their glow had brightened. Even those who had doubted him, even Raw's followers, now regarded him with something close to respect. The Queen led him to the central chamber, where the mirrored floor reflected stars and light across the walls. The vines hummed softly, as if the ship itself was singing. "You have done more than survive, Paul," the Queen said. Her silver eyes gleamed with pride. "You have reminded my people what it means to trust, to hope, and to rise. The bond is alive once more." Paul looked around. The memory of battle still pressed on him. The shadows, the fires, the moments when he thought they might lose. But now, standing here with the Queen and the glowing aliens, he understood what had changed. It was not weapons or skill that had won the fight. It was courage, choice, and unity. Rawl approached slowly, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Paul expected anger or contempt, but instead, the jagged glow of his crown softened. "You have done well," Rawl said, his voice low. "I doubted you. I was wrong. The bond you carry, it is real." Paul nodded quietly. "I only did what I could. I followed the Queen and I trusted what she taught me." Rawl studied him, then turned, back to the Queen. "The people will see the truth now. The bond has been renewed." The Queen's lips curved in a rare, gentle smile. "Yes, the bond has been renewed. Humanity and my people are stronger together than apart. The shadows will know that, and the galaxy will remember." Paul felt warmth in his chest, a deep certainty he had not known before. The core had tested him, the shades had tried to break him, and the doubts of others had weighed him down. Yet through it all, he had stood. He had risen, and now, standing in the glow of the Queen's people, he understood the meaning of the promise. The Queen extended her hand to him. "Paul, the bond is not only a story of the past, it is a promise for the future. My people will follow your guidance, and together, we will face what comes next." Paul took her hand, feeling the warmth of her glow merge with the spark in his heart. "Then I will stand with you," he said, "not because I am strong alone, but because we are stronger together." A light filled the chamber, brighter than the glow of the stars outside. The mirrored floor shimmered with images of Earth and the alien worlds, showing moments of peace, courage, and unity. It was a vision of what could be, a reminder that the bond he carried was alive in action, not just words. The Queen's eyes softened as she looked at him. "You have reminded us all that courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to act despite it. You have proven that humanity's place in the stars is secure, and that the promise of old will guide us into the future." Paul felt a new strength welling up inside him. The fear that had gripped him since his arrival on the ship had not disappeared, but it had been replaced by purpose. He understood now that the bond was more than a promise. It was a living force, strengthened by choice, courage, and hope. The Queen stepped back, allowing the rest of her people to approach. One by one, they bowed, glowing brighter than before. The ship vibrated with life, its energy now in harmony with the renewed bond. Even Rawl, once a figure of opposition, lowered his head in respect. Paul looked out through the ship's open view to the stars. The Shades had been defeated for now, but he knew their threat was not gone. The universe was vast and dangers waited in the darkness. Yet for the first time he did not feel powerless. He had found his place among these beings, not as a visitor, but as a part of something larger than himself. The queen approached him once more. "There will be challenges ahead," she said. "The shadows will rise again, and other threats may follow. But we are ready because of you, Paul. Your courage has reminded us of the strength that lies in unity, in trust, and in hope." Paul nodded. "Then we will face them together. We will not let fear decide our fate." The queen's crown of crystals glowed brighter, sending ripples of silver light through the chamber. "The bond is complete. Humanity and my people will walk the stars together, guided by courage and strengthened by the promise of the past." Paul felt the warmth of the queen's words and the energy of the ship merge with the spark inside him. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. In that moment, he understood that the journey was far from over. But he was no longer afraid. The bond had been renewed, and it would guide them through whatever came next. As he opened his eyes, he saw the crew of the ship preparing for the next voyage. Ships of silver light shimmered in the hangars, ready to sail through the stars. The queen's people moved with purpose, and Paul felt the rhythm of their hearts and the beat of their courage join with his own. He stepped forward, ready to face the future, carrying with him the legacy of the human who had saved the queen's people long ago and the promise that had been kept across the ages. The shadows of the past had been faced, and a new dawn of hope spread across the stars. Paul's gaze rested on the infinite sky, a smile touching his lips. The bond had been renewed, stronger than ever, and he knew that together they would light the galaxy with courage, unity, and the enduring strength of humanity. And in that moment, Paul finally understood the truth he had felt all along, that, even in the vastness of the universe, a single human heart could carry the power to change worlds. The queen's hand rested gently on his shoulder, and for the first time, Paul felt completely at home among the stars. The bond was no longer a promise to remember. It was a living, breathing force that would guide them forward, always.